All right, Paleohackers, how you doing today? With me on the other end is my man, Gunnar Lovelace, founder of the Thrive Market Online. They're killing it right now. They got tons of products that you can order for discounted prices. Before I go into a commercial, Gunnar, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, buddy. It's great to be here with you and excited to have a little chat.
Little chat, man. We were just talking before the call about kind of where we wanted to go with this, and I think we got a cool few talking points. It was really fascinating to dive into this topic of health, which has so many different branches coming off it. You know, you got the environmental branch, you got the political branch, you got the sustainable branch, you got the health branch. I mean, there's so many ways you can take this. So kind of, I guess, a first warm-up question for you is what is this whole all-encompassing term of health? Like, what does it mean to you? Why are you so interested in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, it's a very personal topic in that I've been exposed to it my whole life through my mother. So, you know, she was very passionate about health and wellness, and kind of seeing her struggles as a single mom, and then always feeling like there was a way to that there was a huge need to make health and wellness accessible to people, and that it really shouldn't be as hard or as expensive as it is. And so that's always in the back of my mind has always been like, how can this be done a different way? And that's been a burning question throughout my life.
So you grew up single mom. Did she focus primarily on health?
I mean, she personally, she's just been very passionate about it her whole life. So it was, it was really central to her understanding. And, it wasn't like she tried a lot of different diets and modalities, but it was always like, eat healthy, eat organic, that's always been more expensive for people to do. And when you grow up with tight finances, that obviously, sure. You have to make that hard choice. Do I buy the conventional product, which is, 30 to 50% less, or do I buy the thing that's organic? And that's been a question that, this market has faced for a long time.
How much is the extra $2 really benefiting you when you buy spinach? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so you picked up some good eating habits, it sounds like, and good priorities from your mom and good connotations through food. A lot of people don't. They have the opposite. They grow up with fast food, Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, and that's their reward. That's their drive-through. So what you're saying is kind of rubs off on you, and now you're in it, and now you're exploring that for yourself. So I guess the natural follow-up to that is kind of what's the mission then behind the work you do currently?
I mean, our mission is to make healthy living accessible to everybody. And so, I think what's interesting about that, as we kind of talked earlier, in the pre-conversation on the call is, what does that mean? You now have this mass secular trend where people of all walks of life, all political affiliations are interested in health and wellness. You have, a lot of the conversation points, a lot of the products, and a lot of the supply chain was initially developed out of, quite frankly, out of the hippie market. A bunch of counterculture folks that were, experimenting with sprouting or simple foods or whatever it is, and that has grown up over the last 40 years as this really diverse market that is appealing to a lot of different people. And personally, what I find so exciting about that is that it's, in a climate where things are so polarized, you turn on the news and it's like the liberals and the conservatives yelling and screaming at each other, and there's gridlock in Washington, and nobody can get anything done. And it's just kind of like, it's just expected that people are at each other's throats all the time in every conversation that has anything to do with politics, social issues, the environment. And what's so exciting for me personally about health and wellness is that it actually transcends so many of those conversations. It affects so many positive things, but you don't have to even necessarily talk about them. Just by helping people get healthy, people moving towards a healthy lifestyle, people moving away from toxic conventional food and shifting towards organic and regenerative, food supply chains, products, buying, from local farmers, and buying organic food. Like, that has so many virtuous cycles, and it transcends the normal polarization that I think is really, really a challenge for us.
Sure. Yeah, focusing on the similarities of we all want to be healthy, we all want the same things ultimately in the end of life. the feel good to share that with others,
Right.
and instead of the differences, which pull us
That's
apart.
right.
Like, I am in camp conservative, I am in camp Democrat, or I am in camp this religion, this school, this city, this whatever. And yeah, it's a really uniting thing, but it's also a divisive thing at some times. And one of my biggest pet peeves in this movement is that the vegans or the paleos or the whatever camp you subscribe to, and you get dogmatic about it, and everyone, or the CrossFitters, or the bodybuilding, and you want everyone to come to your lifestyle because you think it's the healthiest. That's why you chose it. And so it's that us versus them mentality once again. So the thing that was supposed to unite us is now dividing us if we focus on the differences.
I think that's on the margin, though. Really, I think that's. I mean, it's definitely a valid conversation point, and I think there's legitimately people, like you say, that the vegans get all agitated about the meat consumption among the paleo community, and the paleo community says the vegans are crazy for their consumption of soy and processed foods or whatever it is. I mean, I personally, I'm very paleo in my orientation. My girlfriend is rabidly vegan, so I live that dynamic. I'm fully aware of we've had probably our most difficult conversations around that exact topic. But I think at the end of the day, it's like that's just on the margin. It's a small amount of people that are that passionate about that issue. And when you think about the big trend that's happening, even in the paleo community, for example, you look at the people who listen to and are part of and exploring the conversation of paleo foods. It's moms and it's women, and yeah, they're really passionate about these issues, but they're also very practical, and they're like, how do I take care of myself? How do I look better? How do I feel better? They're not like rabid ideologues about this issue. Like, the people that are making, really intense statements about vegan or paleo, they're on the margin, and it's actually, that's important that their voices are there. But I think when you think about the real shift in awareness towards health and wellness, it's a conversation that everybody's having at some level or another. And I think it's there's many different aspects to it, obviously.
It seems like the general pop, it was what you're saying. What I agree with is that they're the moms, the people going about their day-to-day lives that want to be healthy and feel good, and they focus on, hey, paleo makes me feel good, hey, veganism makes me feel good, and they're not that, vegangelical about it. Some people call it, with the signs out there, meat is murder. They just go about it on their own thing, but squeaky wheel gets the grease, and then the loud people start blogs or podcasts or whatever, and they do the preaching, and then people want to follow them, and it creates this tension. But, we could go down that rabbit hole of what's negative about it, but to focus, I guess, on the positive of how it unites everyone. So set it up. What are you doing at Thrive Market? What's kind of set it up for the person listening right now who's never heard of it?
Yeah, so at a very simple level, we're offering the top brands and products that you would get at a traditional retail channel, traditional health food store, 25 to 50% off, shipped nationally for free. And we do that through a membership model. So we literally break even on the product sales, and instead we charge $60 a year after a trial month, like a Costco membership. And then for every paid membership, we give away a membership to a family in need. So our business is aimed at truly making these previously premium products available to people at a price that they can afford. We're offering, natural and organic products at the same price as conventional ones for the first time in history, in a very curated environment. So it's not, 50,000 products. You go into like a Whole Foods or another type of store like that, and there's like 500 almond butters, and there's 200 chips, and there's what does that all mean, and who are these people, and why should I care? And it's just, there's so much information. So our focus is to make these products available, to really pick the best products and make them available, but also to really make a curated selection so that it's easy for people to find the things that they want. They can sort the entire catalog by paleo or vegan or gluten-free or fair trade or whatever it is the criteria are that they're personally motivated by and interested in, and get the things that they want, quickly get at them, and make it easy and convenient. And I think we're creating a format where people can go online, they can shop direct to consumer, and what we're doing is we're cutting out all the intermediaries, whether it's all the middlemen that are normally in the supply chain. We're cutting them out and passing that savings along to our members.
Right. Okay. And so the people go on there and they get it straight to their door. It's cutting the middleman out. And then also what you said, which is really important, is kind of the option of overwhelm is reduced, because I was talking to Josh Trent on the call yesterday or something. I was doing a call with him, and we were talking about kind of the paradox of choice, where you're sitting in Whole Foods aisle 7 and you're looking at 50 different almond butters, and they all virtually do the same thing. They're all almond butters, but then you start comparing labels and you start looking at fat content and protein ratios, and it's just 30 minutes later you haven't chosen an almond butter, and you scratch your head and you think, was 30 minutes of my day really worth finding this best almond butter? No. I mean, it's not night and day between almond butter A and almond butter B. They're freaking almond butters. Yeah. And so it sounds like, have you guys reduced the choice aspect and just chosen the best one, so they don't have to be scratching their head for almond butters?
That's it. For us, it's best in category. So we try to have very little overlap in terms of category. So it's, instead of, 200 almond butters, it's like 2 almond butters. And we do that across, our main product categories. So that's, for us, that's central to the value prop. There's so much noise. People have so little time. They don't know who to trust. And so, we want to be known as a trusted source that makes it easy, lowers the price, and offers these previously premium products for less online.
So you brought up some things, and that is the 2 most common excuses people seem to have when it comes to health. And that is, I don't have the time and I don't have the money.
Yeah.
So let's tackle that second one. What do you say to people who use the excuse or the valid point that they don't have the money? I mean, health can be expensive. Gym memberships cost things, or organic food is obviously more than others. You go to Whole Foods, your bill's $400 compared to $100 at a normal store. What are your thoughts on that, saying I don't have the money?
Well, I think there's one, aside from the self-serving statement that you can actually afford these products now at Thrive Market, which is true. I think that the more important conversation is that, when we think about the arc of our lives and we think about the quality of life that we want to have, the energy that we want to bring to our life, the quality of life that we want for our children, the world that we want to inherit, just even more practically, how much money are we going to spend on doctors and medicine and reactive, health protocols if we choose to eat toxic processed conventional food versus organic food? Just that alone, people say they can't afford to eat healthy. The practical reality is we can't afford not to eat healthy. And that just takes a little bit of a shift. We're all so trained now with all everything that's, moving so fast, technology, rapid iteration. We're just fed, our whole training is, how what's the next step? What do I need? How fast? How do I say? And we don't think a lot about, culturally at this point, we're not thinking ahead very often. I mean, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, people just don't think about that very often in a way that's practical and grounded in their day-to-day decision. So I think it's really about, I think it's about recognizing that, we're going to be alive for a period of time, might be short, might be longer, but, whatever the increment of time is, the practical reality is if we don't actually invest in ourselves, we're actually going to spend more money than we would if we didn't invest in ourselves.
Yeah, we're living longer than ever now. And I was just thinking about that too, in terms of retirement, and talking to my dad coming up on retirement, and he's thinking man, I got a lot of my life left if I'm going to live to be, I don't know, in my 90s or even 80s. And you got to make your money count. You got to save early and let it compound. It's kind of like health too. When you look at investment books and they say the younger you start, the better off you are later on. It's kind of like with health. The younger you start, the less taxes you put on your body, the less use you go through, the less metabolic stress you put it through, the better off you're going to be in the long term. And so it is though, you bring up an interesting point about that long term mindset, and that's very hard in our culture today of instant gratification, of excess, of all that stuff. So what you're saying then is we got to be thinking about the long term and not so much the short term, and in doing so we can prioritize and spend our money accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one conversation point, right? That's just kind of the macro. I think there's more immediate things, which are like, there are really practical, simple ways to make the healthy choice for less. So it's, using whole ingredients, buying from a local farmer at farmers markets, participating in Thrive Market for the food that isn't fresh that you want, your staples and your pantries and your cleaning supplies, which you can now buy for the same price as conventional ones, or it's shopping at a Trader Joe's locally. I mean, there's ways to like intelligently triage this. It takes some thoughtfulness. It takes intent. If we're just doing what we're used to doing or what's being spoon-fed to us by the mainstream traditional culture, we're going to end up with a result where we have to make the traditional decision, which is, do I buy conventional food for less or do I buy organic food for more? And that's the decision that will be made unless we put a little bit of intent and time and thoughtfulness in making other decisions.
Where should the person who's on a really tight budget spend their money first?
I mean, I think it depends on where they're located. There's over 10,000 farmers markets and CSAs nationally now. So, that to me is, I think, one of the most interesting trends. Farmers markets and CSAs have more than tripled in the last 6 years in terms of the amount of them in this country. So one of the things we're doing is we're launching the largest directory of farmers markets and CSAs in the fall, so we can help people connect with and support local farmers, buy truly nutrient-dense, truly fresh food from farmers for less money, keeping money in the local supply chain. I think that's a really, really important trend that we need to, with our dollars, we need to vote that way. It's crazy that we buy produce that's been shipped across this country. The average vegetable has been shipped like 5,000 miles. And, because it gets shipped from the farm to a distribution center to another location to the final retail location. And, the actual quality of that food is so degraded by the time it actually arrives in a consumer's hand, and so I think,
or how about one better? They ship it raw or not ripe and they gas ripen it or whatever in the carts. Yeah.
Totally. Or it's engineered, with GMOs. And sprayed with all sorts of shit along the process that defends it against bugs makes it withstand, as you said, that kind of unripened travel ripening process. So I think there's a lot of different dynamics there. But I think fundamentally it's like really recognizing that we're voting with our dollars. When we buy things, we are voting with our dollars. And we are making a decision, whether we're aware of it or not, to support a conventional, obsolete supply chain, or we're participating in a new model that's better for us and better for the economy and better for the environment.
It is amazing though when you look at your apple and you see the sticker on it, and you're like, "Where was this from?" And you realize it's from New Zealand, And to think about this apple that cost me 75 cents, so somewhere along that way, it's worth enough profit to ship it for 75 cents that I'm paying it for. How much profit are they really making on an apple? I mean, 20 cents, 30 cents, 40 cents. Right. And they do that on such a massive level right now that it's so profitable to ship an apple from New Zealand all the way to Seattle.
That's right.
And I can eat it for 70 cents. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So that just kind of shows how the system's currently, anytime you say that, you're a conspiracy theorist, the system's set up in a way that it's so mass produced right now. And if we can kind of cut down what we were saying, like the middleman, and go direct, okay, now you don't have to pay 70 cents for an apple for someone to get 40 cents in New Zealand. You can pay 50 cents for an apple and someone gets 50 cents of that from their farm.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe it costs 70 cents. Maybe it's the same price as the conventional apple, but it's the same price, right? So you can go to a farmer's market and you can buy that organic apple direct from a farmer for 70 cents. And that to me is a really great solution. That means that if the farmer, we're supporting a local farming economy. The farmer is getting a good quality of life, and that instead of participating in this complex global supply chain with all the carbon emissions and toxic pesticides and herbicides, we're buying direct, locally, truly fresh food from a local farmer at the same price, and we're voting with our dollars. And it's really that simple.
And they can sell less too, because what people don't realize, I didn't realize until I started getting into the wholesaling business, researching different wholesale and retail methods and stuff like that, is there's always a profit margin of, I don't know, in retail it's normally 50%. So if I'm selling a shirt at Nordstrom's for $20, well, the wholesaler sold it them for $10 because they're not going to do anything that doesn't make 50%. So that basically means that the seller is making $10 a shirt, but then you got cost in that, so it's really $5 a shirt. Well, when you go direct and you pay the farmer, let's just use a shirt example, $20 for that shirt that cost him $5, instead of a $5 profit margin, he's making a $15 profit margin. So now you can sell 3-4 times less and still get the same amount you would have with conventional,
right.
Which is why that direct to farmer relationship is so important.
Yeah, and I think that really cuts to a really interesting question, which is, why is it that products with lots of chemicals and processing cost less than ones with no chemicals and processing, right? That's really like the big question here. And the real reason is that, as you mentioned earlier, you've got a supply chain where companies have achieved economies of scale, meaning they're sold everywhere. So they're operating at such scale that they can afford to ship the apple from New Zealand and sell it for 75 cents through a bunch of different intermediaries, and it still makes economic sense in a very distorted economic model. And so you have got the reason that products with lots of chemicals and processing cost less is you've got economies of scale and you've got corporate welfare. And so there's all of these unknown corporate subsidies, externalized profit mechanisms which are subsidizing the conventional food supply system. And the real issue is, how do we, again, go back to that really proactive thing? How do we make a proactive stand for ourselves and for a higher quality of life, a better environment, a better economy? How do we consciously vote with our dollars and we make the real deliberate decision to take a little bit of extra time, go to a farmer's market, find other ways to buy these products for less, and actually support conscious companies and conscious farmers that are, to your point, when you go direct, it can be done at much lower scale and still provide can still be accessed at a similar price as a conventional one, and it has some margin that allows the supplier to be able to actually make a quality life.
Do you think we can do both models at the same time? Because as much as I love that direct to consumer, supporting local farmers markets and stuff like that, I'm not going to lie, I do love in December when it's snowing in Seattle, going and getting bananas year round. I mean, I like it. Yeah. It's good. I can throw it in my shakes, my smoothies. Totally. I mean, that's cool. And that wouldn't exist if I went direct to my farmers. Yeah. I mean, I'd be limited to beets and carrots in the winter. Right. You know what I mean? In Seattle, it just doesn't grow.
It's not about, I think recognizing we're in a global economy, I think there's no way that the bananas are going away. At the end of the day, we benefit from a world that can transport things cheaply through a petroleum-based economy, and so that's just what's happening, right? So I think it's we have to do our best, and at the end of the day, we're very self-interested. So we want our bananas in the winter, and that's just the reality of where we're at, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to wherever we can, we do need to make the incremental substantive decision to be part of a new paradigm of consumer behavior, and recognize where we're not, and then continue to challenge ourselves to find ways to do that better all the time.
I think that's kind of what Whole Foods is doing to a certain extent. And mixing the best of both worlds. They do a lot of, I know some people in this space say they're the best thing ever. Others say they're kind of like the organic Walmart. There's a lot of mixed views on Whole Foods out there, but what's your thoughts on Whole Foods?
I mean, I think Whole Foods has been, I think they've really helped the industry in a lot of ways. I think they've helped a lot of small suppliers and farmers, actually, creating certain types of standards and actual economies of scale, and really helped create a consolidated channel that was a place for a lot of these natural products and organic products to find a home and to find consumers. And I think that's been really, really beneficial. I think that's been really, really important. When I was growing up, and I'm not that much older than you, I think maybe 10 or 15 years older than you, there was, very, very few Whole Foods. It was like a bunch of little, hippie based little health food stores. There was like it was just small time. Right. And so it's been good for this economy of organic products and the suppliers to have a really scalable channel to put their stuff into it. And, there's a lot of things that happen when a company like Whole Foods gets really big. They have a lot of internal dynamics that they have to work out. The economy shifts, the priorities shift. There's price compression in the market. Other people are entering in. Walmart's now selling lots of organic food. Right. Target, Trader Joe's, Thrive Market. There's a lot of different people that working to solve the problem, and so they're forced to have to reevaluate how they do their margin structure. What does that mean for them? Which is why you can see. They're launching a 365 store, and that's targeted towards millennials, and it has some product curation, and they're trying to make the products less expensive. So that
oh, they are. What's the 365 store? They're
launching a network of new stores that's called 365 by Whole Foods, which is exactly that. Instead of
that's their brand, right?
It'll be their new brand that's focused. It's a new retail concept for them.
Oh, and when are they launching that?
I think it's going to launch next year. I mean, again, it takes a long time to do that, right? Launching brick and mortar retail locations is a long, slow, capital expensive process. But it just shows you that people are responding to it. And I think there's a lot of challenges, whether it's Whole Foods or it's Trader Joe's. Or even Thrive Market. Like, how do you deal with, for us, we've made what we feel is a very important decision right from day one, that we're only going to carry foods that are free of GMOs. Like, that's the bottom line for us. Like, we're the largest retailer in the country at this point offering foods that are free of GMOs. And that's, for us, we feel like the jury is still out. We don't know enough about GMOs. We don't know what the implications are. We don't want to buy food that has been, genetically engineered to withstand glyphosate and other types of toxic chemicals, which while the food may be able to withstand that, it's still likely entering into our bodies. So we don't want to participate in that. And so, I think that's a dynamic tension that a lot of retailers face. Like, where do they draw the lines in the sand, and what does that mean to them, and how do they approach it, and what are the costs of that? And I think that's a conversation that, quite frankly, most companies are having today. Every company has to have that conversation. I mean, you saw Chipotle just came out saying that they're not going to sell GMO free. They're going to sell everything GMO free. And like you saw,
I think their stock price went up after that. I followed them on my ticker. And
it's actually a good question. I'm curious. I'd be curious to see if that actually. I know that they got heavily attacked in the media. And it was interesting to see how the media viewed that conversation.
CMT. Whoa, yeah, dude, that went skyrocket. It looks like as soon as that was probably like a week ago, a month ago, no more than that.
It was like maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it looks like they had a big spike. Yeah, they're killing it right now. They're at 620. Anyway, I don't want to bore the listeners with stock prices and investment stuff. Netflix is splitting 7-1. Woo. Anyway, so back to GMOs. Like, that's a really fascinating thing you bring up, because it's got, again, a hot button issue. Tons of people talking about it. And there's all these pros and cons. And I mean, people seem to have formed an opinion on it. And so one way or the other, when you talk to someone, it's their opinion versus yours if you don't agree. And it seems to be one of the topics that has the most confirmation bias around it.
That's right.
Basically meaning, if you believe that GMOs are bad, you research everything of why they're bad, and you have your 5 bullet points, with all that stuff. And then if you think they're good, you research 5 bullet points of why they're good, and the other guys are crazy, and you just go at it with the people you don't agree with. So do you take more of like a level-headed approach? Have you weighed the pros and cons? Do you see any pros that people might not be seeing? Do you see any cons that are really bad? Like, I guess, where do you stand on that spectrum?
Well, I mean, we as a business, we've made the most definitive statement as the largest retailer in the country offering food free of GMOs. So that's pretty clear. Like, other businesses or other retailers are talking about doing it in the future. We've done it today. So that I think that's, actions speak louder than words. We've made a clear decision as a business that we are not going to participate, and we are not going to carry foods that have GMOs, period. End of story. Now, obviously, I think...
What about like products too?
Products are actually really... So you mean like beauty care, things like that?
Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting point. It's really, really hard on beauty care products. And the reason is you've got, very complex supply chains, and it's actually really, really, really hard to get full traceability on that. So that's a huge area. When you talk to like the non-GMO project, you talk to, Project Verified, that's a really big challenge, and it's a hard place. The truth is, though, 99% of the activity is happening on the food side. When you talk about GMOs, I think the jury is out, right? I think there are, there's clearly, case studies where, you've got varieties of food plants that have been engineered, say in Africa, that need less water, and they grow faster. That could be very promising. Those types of things. I think there's some real dangers associated with GMO engineering. We're playing with things that can go wrong very quickly at very big scale. And, you look at, say, the way that GMO engineered soy or corn, and the way that you've got, pollen that blows across farms. And, what happens if a strain of some new engineered product that we think is safe actually isn't safe, and it causes some, critical failure in either the local ecosystem, or it causes a critical failure in our own bodies in a way that we just don't understand. This stuff is also new. It often takes us 20 years before we start to see the real impacts of the decisions that we're making. You look at the evolutionary cycles. We're talking about 4 billion years on the planet, and you don't really see, just in terms of the way things happen, things don't shift very quickly in terms of evolutionary development. It's over, 10,000 years. You start to see normal evolutionary changes, and we're now in these really short time frames where you see these rapid changes, and so we're confronted with a lot of challenges as a result of that.
Sure. And so with, GMOs being so prevalent, pretty much all soy, all corn is all GMO'd, and there's a lot of stuff in things like the products you were just talking about. Even though you make the active effort to carry non-GMO products at your stand, still at the end of the day, they creep up in things like products that we might not think have GMOs in them. I mean, I don't know if the ones you sell do. Again, it's hard to trace, but that's kind of the point, is like they're so out there right now. They're in everything. Is it really realistic that we can get rid of GMOs, or are they just so ingrained at this point it's kind of a lost cause?
Well, no, I think the debate is still very, very open. I mean, I think that there's going to be work that is done on GMOs just because there's too much money behind it. It's just going to exactly how that happens. I think that's TBD. I think the most important thing, though, is for us to be able to get labeling. We need to know if something has GMOs in it. Period. So I think the efforts by the new elected representatives of Congress to block the ability for states to pass labeling laws.
Yeah,
that's really insidious to me. And the reason that they're doing that, the reason that they're trying to block the ability for states to pass labeling laws the way that Vermont just did, and the way that Oregon almost did within 1,000 votes. The reason that they're doing that is because they know that GMO labeling ballot initiatives are going to go the same way that gay marriage and medical marijuana has. Like, the states will prevail. People that are passionate about it will prevail on this issue, and it will build critical mass. And they know that they can control Congress through lots of money. And so if they can ban labeling at the state level, they feel like they're going to be able to keep that conversation and control the debate.
Sure. And it gains a lot of traction, too, at the state level. And that's where change seems to happen, and they go against it.
It's local up.
To me, it's insidious, though, like how people, corporations rather, will spend millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars saying that we can't have GMO labels because we're going to lose money. It's going to kill our profits. It's going to take away from us. You don't know how hard that'll be on us. But then you're like, wait, you just spent millions of dollars of profit that you could have been using for elsewhere. So obviously you have money to go against it. It's not really going to affect you that much. I think Coca-Cola was one of the biggest donators or something in the last one. You know, there was that, was it 522 in Washington State that didn't pass or something, and it had a lot of problems. It was like a poorly written bill, and so I see it. And but yeah, it is fascinating when you follow the money behind who's backing the anti-labeling movements and realize there's alternative motives besides it'll kill our profits.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also you've got major multinational food supply companies, that are like, they're in Europe, for example. A lot of the products are free of GMOs from these same companies, but then they turn around and they sell very, very similar products to U.S. consumers with GMOs. And they say that it's going to be difficult for them to do, and it's going to cost more money. It's just a bunch of BS. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, right? It's just a bunch of pure BS. And what's really, really important is it just goes back to, we have to vote with our dollars. It's that simple. We vote with our dollars, and the companies that are doing organic foods, are doing GMO-free foods, are doing grass-fed foods. Like, these companies are all booming right now. You look at Coca-Cola stock, it's collapsing. You look at McDonald's stock, it's collapsing.
Let's pull those up in the ticker.
That's why, the reason that that's happening is because there's this huge secular trend now where people are voting with their dollars, and they're voting for their self-interest, and there's an awakening and awareness that's happening around, I'm going to either feed my body, toxic sugar and preservatives, or I'm gonna feed it something wholesome, and that's a simple decision that's driven largely by self-interest, and that's a good thing.
It's really hard. I mean, I've been playing devil's advocate this call. I'm a huge supporter of non-GMO, obviously. I love the organic movement and voting with your dollars and all that, but it is hard, like, being a level-headed person trying to really not just buy into it because it's new, or like I'm anti-GMO just because that's hip, but to really try and research it, because you can't find unbiased research out there. And that's one of the things that's pissed me off the most, like really trying to research GMOs, because one of two things happen. The research that say it's okay and safe, well, it's funded by the people who want it to be okay and safe, and it's, completely biased. And then the research that says otherwise is really inconclusive because we haven't had them here for long enough to see the long-term effects of GMOs. So it's something you almost have to go on faith alone and say, okay, am I willing to risk it 20 years down the road? I'm like, no, I don't want to be a part of that experiment. That's why I've chose to go the non-GMO route. But it is frustrating that research isn't out there as much as it'd like to be. Have you seen any sort of studies that have been convincing?
First of all, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of confirmation bias. I think in terms of the health and wellness movement, I think probably the GMO conversation is probably the most polarizing conversation that happens. It's probably much more so than the paleo versus vegan conversation in terms of like the impact and the way that plays out across the country. I think there is data that is coming out showing that glyphosate. The World Health Organization came out with a study a few months ago showing that there is, for the first time, a very likely probable link between glyphosate consumption and carcinogen cancer. And that's probably the most trusted, respected international body of scientists
Who did that?
That's the World Health Organization, WHO.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a huge organization.
Right.
They came out definitively saying that they think that there is a very probable link between glyphosate and cancer. And that really is, and glyphosate is
that in GMOs, glyphosate?
Yeah, so here's the deal. So you've got, like Monsanto, and you have Roundup is sprayed on GMO crops so that it kills weeds. So what they want to do is they basically carpet bomb these, huge mono agriculture farms, right. Soy, corn, whatever it is that they're doing, they carpet bomb it with glyphosate, and it kills the weeds, and they engineer the plants so that they can withstand the carpet bombing of the glyphosate. So the plants are engineered to be able to withstand the glyphosate, but it doesn't mean that the plants aren't still absorbing the glyphosate. And it doesn't mean that human beings who eat those foods later on in the whatever various forms that they show up in the food supply aren't absorbing glyphosate. And there's a clear link now that the WHO has come out with that shows that, glyphosate is likely a probable cause of cancer. I think that's not actually that's not directly about GMOs. Like, I think to your point, there's actually, there isn't a lot of data that I've seen that distinctly and credibly shows that genetically engineered food is necessarily dangerous. And I could be completely wrong on that, but what I have seen is data that suggests the processes used to grow GMO foods very, very likely inserts chemicals and pesticides into our bodies.
Glyphosate. It sounds like a bad metal band from the 80s.
That's right, glyphosate.
Coming to your town near you. All right, man. Hey, I just checked the time. It's 9:00, awesome. So I know we both got calls and stuff to do.
It's great.
So I'm kicking you off my show, man. Get out of here.
I'm gonna go talk to my therapist. I feel rejected.
That's right, man. Hey, Gunnar, before I let you go, why don't you tell the listeners about Thrive Market if they didn't hear it already and how they can find out more about that?
Yeah, so thrivemarket.com. Access your favorite health food products online that you would normally get at a health food retail location, 25 to 50% off, shipped nationally for free. We need your help. We're growing very, very quickly. We're part of a larger movement to make healthy living accessible to everybody. And this is a group effort, and really appreciate your support. And we're happy to be on the show.